The narrative begins long after the era of men who sought to equal the gods who lived among them in power. In a small village of the Grey Dogs clan, we meet a boy named Alec, who admires his father's work. He then goes out to play and enjoy the beauty of the nature around him. After playing with his straw bird, he goes to retrieve it from the vegetation surrounding his village. Suddenly, he becomes frightened and runs home after seeing a horseman drawing his sword. Meanwhile, the village is caught by surprise as a small enemy army invades the settlement, slaughtering many peasants. Without mercy, the invaders destroy everything, setting the huts on fire and ruining the crops cultivated by the people. Terrified, Alec keeps running in search of safety, while the village's spiritual leader tries to pray to his gods, but is killed before he can utter a single name. Some villagers attempt to fight the invaders, but they are all killed. Alec's strong father manages to confront several enemies and defeat them with ease. However, more enemies approach the village. The executioner of the fierce Carrion Wolves clan, known as Leudode, sees Alec's father's remarkable performance, prepares an arrow, and fires it at the blacksmith. Unfortunately, the shot is surgically accurate, and the man is struck by an arrow that paralyzes him. To finish him off, Leudode dismounts his horse and kills the blacksmith in front of his family. Next, the mother and son are thrown to the ground, and even though the woman is pregnant, she receives no special mercy. The boy can only watch as his family is destroyed before his eyes by the leader, whose face is never clearly seen, but who uses his sword to commit such a cruel act. With both his father and mother dead, Alec develops a deep fury in his heart. The boy bites the enemy's hand but is shoved away, and the man orders that he be taken to work in the mines. However, Alec engraves into his memory the tattoo on the criminal's hand. 20 years pass, and we meet Alec fully grown, now wandering the land alone with only the company of a domesticated bat with a broken wing. On a peaceful night, he spots a fortress atop a mountain in the distance and decides to climb the steep slope to enter it. While climbing stealthily, he defeats the guard distracted during his watch, making his entry undetectable. Upon reaching the entrance, he hides and observes two hooded figures, claiming that the lord of the place does not know the secret they carry regarding the young female prisoner. They then leave the fortress. Soon afterward, Alec enters and uses his spear as support. There, he sees a young captive, but before he can help her, two men pass in front of his hiding place, preventing him from moving forward. As soon as they leave, Alec continues deeper into the fortress. On the suspended bridges leading to the upper levels, he scatters a powder and then heads toward where the young woman is imprisoned. He knocks out the guard and enters the chamber of Lord Leudode, who was harassing the young woman Nillet. Alec has the opportunity to grab the sword, but chooses to fight honorably instead. He throws a spear to the man, and the duel begins. However, dishonor is part of Leudode's nature. He immediately grabs the sword and fights to gain the advantage. During the battle, he realizes that the younger man was once among the slaves from years ago, explaining his incredible strength. The fight throws the fortress into chaos, terrifying the young Nillet, while flames spread rapidly wherever Alec had scattered the incendiary powder. Alec fights bravely using only his spear and, as expected, finds an opening in the enemy's defense, hurling his weapon straight into the man's chest. He then breaks the blade that had killed his parents years before. Realizing that the enemy before him is not the one he seeks, he questions the man about the warrior with the wolf tattoo on his hand. However, Leudode would rather die than reveal who he is. After defeating him, Alec frees the young woman and tells her to follow him. The warrior defeats his opponents and heads toward the fortress exit, but he is forced to search for an effective way to escape the collapsing bridges that he himself had damaged. He encounters another warrior and manages to slash his face. He then heads for the dungeon, where the two of them lock themselves inside. Fortunately, thanks to an old prisoner who had lived there for years, Alec is told where the exit is located and, by luck, discovers a hidden passage inside the stone wall. Grateful, he retraces his steps, frees the prisoner, and they all escape before part of the fortress collapses. The following morning, we see Alec alive and well, speaking with an entity that appears before him. Alec asks for information about the other enemy, but the spiritual priestess says that the world is now ruled by love and that the evil he sought had already come to an end. Minutes later, while talking with an old man named Telon, he discovers that the elder was the architect of the fortress, which is why he knew about the secret passage. The young Nilit asks whether the man knows anything about the meaning of the tablet bearing the manuscript, and Telon, despite being blind, knows that it is something of great importance, probably the key to the celestial gate of the gods. He says that the answer to its complete meaning must be found in the city known as Gilarad. However, this discovery means nothing to Alec, who stands up and begins his journey. Yet, after spending many days with his pet, he understands it when the animal flaps its wings, showing that it does not wish to leave Alec's new friends. Sometime later, they are seen on the road to the city of Gilarad, where they ask a group of travelers for a ride. However, the leader of the group does not want that man's company, even though he offers to accompany them and protect the caravan, since the road to the city is dangerous. Realizing they will not be accepted, Alec challenges the leader, Oglazy, asking him to order one of his guards to force him off the road. One of the most skilled warriors accepts the challenge, but unexpectedly, Alec proves superior in combat techniques and humiliates the guard. The others, armed, move in to confront the warrior as well, but they are also humiliated. Seeing that the man will be useful, Oglazy accepts the newcomers into the group. A few minutes later, while traveling along a road covered in dense fog, Alec asks Oglazy to order his men to prepare themselves, but the warning is ignored. It is not long before the malicious horseman known as Zadoba emerges from the mist, feared by many peoples, wearing terrifying garments and a primate skull helmet. He orders his men to search for what belongs to him. The soldiers and guards on both sides enter battle, and fortunately for Oglazy's group, Alec fights skillfully and helps the weaker men. At that moment, seeing that his small army is faltering, the Dark Leader reveals that he is something other than human. In his hands is a sword unlike any other. As he swings it, a single strike unleashes a wave of destruction that devastates everything in its path. Soon, he forces Nilit out from beneath the wagon and demands to know where their leader is. When she considers remaining silent, the human-like creature raises its sword to kill her, but fortunately Alec arrives quickly and blocks the enemy's attack. Dodging the blow, the warrior manages to sever the creature's arm and forces it to drop the sword. At that moment, the creature lets out a devastating and terrifying scream, and realizing it has lost the battle, it flees. A few minutes later, Oglazy surveys the losses among his people and blames Alec, claiming that he brought evil upon them. Holding him responsible, he orders him to leave alone. Then Alec picks up the sword left behind and realizes that the enemy he fought is responsible for the murder of his parents. Furious, Oglazy searches the forest for the creature but finds nothing. Upon returning, Alec is expelled from the group, but Elena intervenes and convinces the others to accept him back. Hours later, the group reaches Gilarad, a city cursed by dark forces that lives under constant cold, something that bothers part of the group. Separating himself from the others, Alec goes to a blacksmith's shop and asks the local smith about the sword he carries. The old man says perhaps he does know something and asks what the stranger is doing there. Suddenly, Alec is surrounded by local guards and taken to the royal hall of the city. Before the commander of the guard, Lushazar, he hears that he will be executed in the town square, and the man orders him imprisoned until the following morning. The accusations are based on his possession of the sword, for the evil carried by the former owner of the artifact has fallen upon the innocent Alec. Suddenly, the imprisonment is interrupted by the princess. Alec introduces himself and states that he won the sword in a recent battle, and therefore it now belongs to him. Looking at the man, the lady does not recognize him as the enemy Zadoba, whom they believed they had captured, and states that the creature bears a mark on its right hand, distinguishing it from all its puppets, who bear the mark on their chests. Alec shows his hand and proves his innocence. The royal family offers him a gift as an apology for the inconvenience, and ends up showing him the royal ring, causing Alec to remember the strange figures he had seen leaving Nivitar's fortress, although their faces remain unknown. Later, Alec discovers that Telorn possesses healing powers. During a conversation, the wise old man reveals that Zadoba serves the dark goddess Morona and works to restore her reign over the world. Uninterested in the story, Alec asks only where he can find his enemy. Telorn replies that Zadoba will eventually return to what he desires. The next morning, after Lushazar leaves the village, Alec waits for the leader to remove her hood so he can see her face, but she remains cautious, keeping it on as she walks through the city streets with her advisor. When Alec notices a stranger beginning to follow the princess, he follows him closely. However, upon reaching the marketplace amid the bustling crowd, he loses sight of him. He then enters the place where the princess had gone. It is a religious site where the local god is worshipped. The priestess appears and tells Alec that he has no protection against the goddess Morona, but if he embraces the worship of the twin gods, he will be blessed and protected from all evil. He ignores her and continues following the majesty. However, he comes upon an open area where a religious leader is judging a blasphemer of his faith, who is to be severely punished. The young Everic does not deny what he preaches and is soon humiliated. He is given a sword to fight with, but his weakness and lack of skill in handling the weapon are obvious. He is about to be whipped when Alec interrupts the punishment. Standing before the crowd, the warrior declares that he has his own gods, but neither disrespects theirs nor forces anyone to follow his beliefs. However, his words are dismissed by the cult leader, and the man's guard immediately challenges Alec. Fortunately, Alec is highly skilled and uses the sword only to counterattack, break his opponent's weapon, and easily subdue the executioner. Alec demands Everic's release, but the judge declares that he must pay for it. Alec offers money, but the man wants his sword instead. Wanting the servant to be safe, Alec leaves the sword behind and walks away. Shortly afterward, a stranger appears wishing to buy the sword, but it is not offered to him. Soon, the princess takes the sword for herself. After leaving the place, Everic and Alec part ways. Unfortunately, the young man is stabbed by the executioner, who leaves him to die. Hearing the cry of a little girl, Alec returns and helps the young man. He carries him to his quarters, where he asks the old Telorn for help. The elder immediately begins the treatment. Meanwhile, Alec throws some of the magical powder he carries into the fire so that it burns even hotter. Time passes, and the following morning we see that the young Everic has recovered. Soon afterward, Alec is summoned to a gathering in the village center, where Lord Knees addresses everyone, declaring that in light of the rumors that the leader of the Carrion Wolves has been killed, he has decided to sign a truce with the northern leader, the son of the deceased, Prince Vinitar. The agreement strengthens the protection of his province, for Vinitar's warriors will defend them against the enemy Zadoba, and in return his daughter, Princess Ellen, will be given as Vinitar's bride. Thus, the northern heir will assume the rule of Galarad. The princess will be escorted to the city of Vinitar by Ambassador Dugurm and the princess's cousin, Lushazar. As the discussion unfolds, Alec notices the scar-faced warrior named Volkadov, whom he had fought before, staring at him with fury. Soon, however, his attention shifts to Princess Ellen, the same young woman he had rescued during the battle on the road. She then addresses everyone and, as a gesture of gratitude before the crowd, calls Alec forward and returns the sword to him. Afterward, she thanks her subjects for their years of voluntary service. At that very moment, the man who had previously followed her through the city emerges from the crowd and hurls 2 blades at her. Fortunately, Alec reacts instantly, throwing his sword and deflecting part of the attack. The throw also strikes the attacker, killing him. In addition, Alec throws himself in front of the beautiful woman and is wounded by one of the blades, once again saving the princess. One of the villagers tends to his wound before he collapses from the pain, while the soldiers discover that the attacker was one of Zadoba's warriors, another puppet of the goddess Morana. Later, Alec is lying upon the rocks of a mountain, being healed by the priestess who exists only within his visions, but he soon awakens and realizes that he is actually being partially healed by the old Telorn, while the vision had merely been a flashback from the past. The princess is there beside him and thanks the warrior once again. However, taking the opportunity, he asks Ellen why she had been inside the carrion wolves' fortress. The princess explains that she had gone there to retrieve something that belonged to her and had disguised herself to avoid being recognized. He also asks why Princess Ellen is being hunted by the enemy Zadoba, but she refuses to answer. Knowing the real danger Ellen will face on the journey to the city of Vinitar, Alec offers to accompany her as her personal guard. Trusting the warrior, she accepts his offer. After the princess leaves, old Tylorn tells his friend that he can see Alec's blood on the woman's hands and begs him not to go. However, reflecting on the earlier words that the wolf always goes where its prey is, Alec decides to protect the princess and in doing so, sees another opportunity to destroy his enemy. Before the farewell, Keynes hands Ellen a copy of the map and instructs her to follow the route to Vinitar, revealing that other copies have already been sent to his nephew and to the ambassador. The following morning, she bids farewell to her people, receives 2 bracelets, and departs from the kingdom. At the same time, Alec and his friends continue their search for the celestial gates with the mysterious key, while Zadoba begins marching with his army, offering sacrifices to his goddess. After hours of walking across the lush green plains of the kingdom of Galirad, Alec is insulted by the guards, who dismiss him despite the fact that he is part of the princess's escort. When they reach the border of Kness's lands, Ellen steps out of the carriage to bid farewell to her home, unaware that she is being watched by Zadoba's henchmen. Just as they prepare an arrow to shoot at the royal lady, Alec steps in front of her, preventing the shot from being fired. After the stop, the convoy boards a ferry to cross the river. As soon as they reach the opposite bank, Alec scans the surroundings while Ellen stands at the carriage door, making herself an easy target for the enemy. Fortunately, one of the soldiers steps into the line of fire at the exact right moment and is killed instead. Spotting where the enemies are hiding, Alec heads into the forest to capture them. He captures one of them and demands information about the creature Zadoba, but before the man can answer, Lushazar kills him. When the princess approaches to inspect the enemy, Lushazar boasts about killing the hunter. The intriguing detail is that the man was carrying the route map, and only the ambassador no longer has his own copy, making him suspicious. The journey continues until, in an unfamiliar region, they hear the screams of a woman. Ellen orders the convoy to stop and heads toward the source of the cries. They soon arrive at a village guarded by strange men. One of the loyal servants of the local leader asks who the young woman is, and Ellen reveals her identity. The man then orders everyone to lay down their weapons and approach. The local leader, known as Carol, examines them carefully and orders them to wait while a woman is judged. Seeing a female prisoner, Ellen asks about her son and then requests permission to take the woman with her in exchange for whatever the chief desires. However, the man claims that the woman is a witch and must die. At that moment, the princess asks Alec to act and fight to get them out of there. The soldiers of that kingdom are weak and many lack combat training, so they are quickly subdued by Alec. As they retreat toward the riverbank, Ellen's group sees the leader cutting the rope that holds the cage, causing it to plunge into the depths of the river. Fearing for the woman's life, Alec dives in to rescue her. Realizing he cannot win the conflict, leader Kirill allows the group to leave. Later, Alec receives the gratitude of the woman named Likark, who demonstrates that she knows which tribe he belongs to and claims to know more about him than he himself realizes, revealing that she is no ordinary woman. After hours of walking, the group finally reaches a fork in the road, where one path is longer while the other is shorter but crosses a swamp surrounded by terrifying legends throughout the kingdoms, known to be lands ruled by Zadoba. One of the servants advises the group not to take that route, but Ellen insists they will travel along the old road. Along the way, while scouting the surroundings, Alec is questioned by a guard named Ertani about supporting such a dangerous route, but he simply continues following the princess he has sworn to protect. They come across an ancient stone structure that resembles an open-air temple of worship, but could also serve as a shelter. Ertani attempts to offer herself to the warrior, but he rejects her. Suddenly, After hearing a noise from the camp, they rush back. Everything is fine, but Alec is reprimanded for wandering too far away. Minutes later, as night approaches, Alec goes to the riverbank to quench his thirst. He notices an ambush and warns the others to protect the princess. While she is taken to safety, the warriors engage the enemy army. During the battle, Alec saves the princess from an arrow and, consumed by fury, defeats numerous enemies, forcing the survivors to retreat. Soon, he shouts for his enemy Zadaba, demanding that he reveal himself before him. Suddenly, a thick smoke begins to emerge from the dark forest ahead of them and starts surrounding the group. Without warning, several guards are dragged away by unknown forces in the form of smoke, which consume them and carry them to their deaths. Upon noticing a lit torch, Alec realizes that fire repels those creatures. However, the smoke only grows denser. Seeing the evil danger surrounding them, Ellen decides to invoke her gods. She uses her own blood and splashes it onto the rocks around them. Suddenly, the rocks begin to glow and emit heat, driving away the evil that had surrounded them. Shortly afterward, Lushazar arrives with the rest of the soldiers and says they have defeated the enemies they were fighting. At that moment, Alec asks the ambassador to send a messenger so that the groom Vinitar may come to meet them, bringing immediate reinforcements. The warrior Volkadov is sent. A few hours later, we see the traitor informing Zadaba of every step taken by the princess's group. Unfortunately, the traitor is Lushazar, who, out of jealousy for the throne, wishes to prevent the marriage. Zadaba hands the traitor a poison and orders him to eliminate his opponents, otherwise he will have no kingdom to rule. That night, we see Lushazar among the others, waiting for Alec to drink the poisoned water from his flask. However, the warrior does not drink, drawn instead by the songs Lakark was singing. She explains that she was inspired by a young warrior who earned his freedom by confronting a villain who tormented him in the mines inside White Mountain, where precious stones were mined. Hearing this story, Alec remembers his past because he was that young warrior. He had been marked as a slave and forced to work relentlessly despite being only a boy. However, the harsh environment did not weaken him but instead made him stronger. The flashback shows the fight in which Alec defeated his opponent and won his freedom because of it. Minutes later, fate preserves Alec's health, and the servant interrupts his drink to summon him at Ellen's request. Alec enters the princess's tent, and the warrior's feat is revealed. Ellen then explains that it was her ancestor who defeated the evil goddess, and that only she knows the secret of the celestial gates, through which it would be possible to release the goddess's heart. That is why Zadoba's hunters want her dead, an act that would break the curse imprisoning the goddess in her eternal punishment. Ellen explains that the Carian warrior killed by Alec possessed the key that he believed was the only means of accessing the celestial gate, and for that reason he stole it from her. Alec reveals that his friends have the artifact, leaving the princess astonished. She says that the item must be returned to the Temple of Galirad in order to end the curse that covers the city. Alec replies that this is impossible because they are on their way to the celestial gates to cross them and begin a new life. However, Ellen reveals that such a feat requires her blood, which has been blessed through her ancestral lineage by the god who helped imprison the evil goddess. The conversation is carefully overheard by Lushazar, who becomes eager upon discovering what is needed to give Zadoba what he desires. Inside the tent, Ellen shows her affection for the warrior and says that she wishes to have a family with him, not with a prince she has never met. However, Alec respectfully refuses her request and leaves the tent. Restless, he drinks his water, walks away into the forest, staggering and slowly losing consciousness. With the warrior no longer nearby, the camp is caught by surprise and attacked by Zadoba's soldiers. At dawn, Alec wakes in terror and discovers that the camp is empty and was destroyed during the night. His protected princess has been taken away, and there is no sign of life anywhere. He cries out in despair, and the sound is heard by Vinitar, who approaches his location. Alec is surrounded and cannot explain the princess's whereabouts. When they inspect the bodies, they find one partially hidden. Alec can only see the hand and the accessories that belong to the princess, so he believes the maiden is dead. To make matters worse, Volkodov tells his lord that it was Alec who killed the former king. Furious, Vinitar attacks Alec to kill him, but the warrior only defends himself while staring at the covered body. Seeing this, Vinitar strikes with even greater force, knocks the warrior to the ground, and calls him a cursed slave. Filled with rage and even stronger than before, Alec rises and nearly kills the prince, but he is stopped by the priestess from his visions, who begs him to stop. When he goes to inspect the body, he discovers that it is not Elin. Beside the corpse, the warrior Erdene, still alive, uses her final breaths to warn that the princess has been taken into the mountains by Zadoba and Lushazar, where she will be sacrificed. Alec immediately mounts a horse and rides away. Just before the furious soldier Volkodov can strike him with an arrow, the healed bat, now able to fly, attacks the man. The day is long, and by nightfall Alec reaches the dangerous, shadowy mountains. On one of the paths below, he spots a small convoy. When the wagon becomes stuck, he leaps down to kill the enemies left behind. He quickly breaks the padlock holding his friends captive and discovers that he has also lost the key containing the manuscript. Meanwhile, farther ahead, high in the mountains, Zadoba reaches a place of difficult access and orders that Ellen be chained to the pillars of his goddess Marona. As soon as he wounds the princess, Alec appears in disguise and, together with the young Everic, fights numerous enemies. The terrain is filled with abysses, so Everic and Alec must be careful not to fall. While the battle continues, Nillet tries to free the guards who had been taken prisoner so they can help. Soon, seizing an opportunity, Alec frees the princess and tells her to seek shelter. As the fighting continues, the creature Zadoba begins the chant to release his goddess, but he is temporarily stopped by the elder who possesses the powers of light. Ellen tries to help the old mage, but both of them are knocked down. Fortunately, Alec appears once again and uses his sword to confront his enemy. Thankfully, Vinitar's soldiers arrive on the battlefield, and the prince joins the warrior Alec in fighting Zadoba. The creature is powerful and wears iron armor, making ordinary blows incapable of piercing its defense. Vinitar is quickly knocked down, leaving only Alec standing. He fights and nearly strikes the creature's face before knocking it into the abyss. Unfortunately, that attack leaves an opening for Zadoba to slash him with his sword. However, determined to avenge his past and destroy the evil that plagued Ellen's kingdom, Alec summons his remaining strength and hurls the enemy into the abyss. But the war is not yet over. Wishing to obtain what he sought, Lushazar takes the key along with Ellen's blood and inserts it into the slot of the goddess's statue. Suddenly, a stone owl breaks free from the pillars and crashes into the rocky cliff ahead. The rocks begin to collapse, destroying the bridge along with many of the remaining enemies. Then, from the mountain wall, a circle of power surrounded by stones emerges, and as soon as it stops before Lushazar, he is turned into stone and consumed. Realizing that death awaits everyone present, Alec prays to the thunder god, asking him to have mercy on the souls of the innocent. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning strikes his sword, transforming it into a great saber of cutting light. Alec unleashes powerful strikes against the evil entity, and with the power granted by the thunder god, succeeds in destroying Marana. Soon afterward, weakened by his previous wound, Alec collapses. To help the warrior, the mage asks for fire to be brought to him, but not even the magical incendiary powder remains to assist him. Suddenly, through the kindness of the gods, the celestial gates open, healing the warrior Alec and granting him a new life. After the victory over evil, Alec presents the princess to the man to whom she had been promised, but Vinitar, realizing that her heart will never belong to him, gives Ellen to Alec, her true love. The film ends with a new commitment being forged, and just as Alec was told at the very beginning, love always prevails.